Hey, insurance. This is Tony Cañas, Chief Motivational Officer at Insurance Nerds and insurance recruiter extraordinaire. Today's episode is entirely a personal story, one that's still very fresh and very close to my heart. If that is not of interest, this is your one warning that today's episode is not at all about insurance or about insurance careers. Many of you recently saw my post about meeting my long lost brother, and I'm going to tell you the whole story. Today's the day. International Terminal, Atlanta, and I even have a sign. First time in my life I make an airport sign, but I am so excited, so excited. The plane from Costa Rica has landed, but I'm guessing it's going to take him a little while to go through immigration. So, no idea. I'm guessing 20 minutes, half an hour before he actually comes out. I have no idea. Okay, so I think I figured out where to put the tripod. So Andres has confirmed that he's past immigration, which is the worst part. So probably just a few minutes.
Please call 911 to be connected to the proper authority. Thank you for doing your part to help end human trafficking.
Muy bien, en todas, absolutamente. Eso es para el video. Eso, o sea, que se vea el rótulo. Te voy a tomar una foto también. I grew up, and this is still very fresh. I'm still processing, so I apologize ahead of time if I get a little emotional while telling this story. I grew up as an only child in Costa Rica. My parents divorced when I was 3, and I loved being an only child. My mom did end up having a daughter, not from my dad, from her second marriage, when I was 15. So I am 15 years older than Lucy, and I left for college when Lucy was like 3 years old. So I grew up as an only child. Lucy grew up as an only child. I came home during Christmas break most years during college, or every year during college. The second year that I came home during Christmas break, my dad took me to the beach, just a day trip to the beach. And on the way back, I was falling asleep when he all of a sudden he says, "So you don't hear it in the rumor mill. You have a brother in the Tres Rios area. His name is Andres Cañas." And that's kind of all I remember of that conversation. And I was in shock. I was very much in shock. My dad also shared that Andres was 2. So I knew that Andres existed since he was 2 years old. He was born in 2002, so I learned about him in 2004 while I was still in college. My dad and his mom were immersed in a very long legal battle in Costa Rica, a very long legal fight that lasted until recently. So I had no contact with Andres. I knew he existed, and I always assumed that someday I would run into him while visiting Costa Rica. I imagined this to be once we were both grown up. I imagined this to be after my dad had probably passed away. And I imagined that during a trip to Costa Rica, I would run into Andres and immediately know that it was him. I imagined that he would. I look so much like my dad that I imagined that Andres would also look just like my dad. and I imagined that I would just recognize him, and I would walk over and just say, Andres, I'm your brother Antonio. Uh, let's sit down, have a drink. Let me tell you about Dad. And I also imagined that he would be very angry at Dad, uh, and since he was raised by his mom, and in the middle of a legal fight, it would only be reasonable to expect that whatever he heard about Dad would not be positive things. And so anyway, that's what I always imagined. Then I started dating Renee 9 years ago, and when Renee learned that I had a brother that I had never met on my dad's side, like a year and a half in, she immediately thought, "Have you looked him up on Facebook?" And my thought was never thought of it. In my mind, Facebook is a social network for U.S. college students, and this was just a kid in Costa Rica. So Renee's like, no, Facebook's for everyone now. So she looked him up, and immediately located him. It was actually very easy to find him. Andres Cañas. Cañas is a very weird last name. It's not a very common last name at all. So it was actually pretty easy to find him, and he was listed as he was listed as Tres Rios, Costa Rica. And he looked just like me when I was a kid. He looked just like my dad when he was a kid. So we found him, and Renee added him on Facebook from her profile, not from mine. So Andres had no way of knowing who this was. He was like 13, this random American girl, several years older than him, adds him on Facebook. He has no idea what's going on, and he doesn't accept the friendship. So we continue, Facebook stalking him every once in a while, looking at the new photos, and this is the only idea we have of what's going on in his life. And on my dad's side, all I know is that the legal fight continues. Then my grandfather passed away, our grandfather, Antonio the second. I am named after him, so is my dad. My grandfather passed away about 5 years ago, almost 5 years ago, and I went home for the funeral, and I stayed at my dad's house. And on the day of the funeral, Andres saw the announcement on the newspaper, which listed my granddad's children and grandchildren, and did not list him. This was, Andres was probably 17, 16 at the time, something like that, 15 or 16. 15, he was probably 15. And he added me on Facebook that day. And I remember getting the ad, accepting it, and since my dad was still in the middle of a legal fight with him, I couldn't message him. I had to be careful with that. I assumed that he would message me since he's the one that added me. I came back to the U.S. and started thinking about how and when to message Andres. Convinced myself that I couldn't message him while he was still underage, and our dad and his mom were still in a legal fight. We both waited, basically. Now I know we were both being cowardly, basically. We were both afraid of rejection, kind of thing. We were both afraid of what we'd find out by reaching out to the other. We both waited and waited and waited and waited. I actually put a note on my calendar, a reminder, on July 4th, 2020, that he was turning 18, and I told myself that after that day, that I would message him on that day or the day after, once he was 18 and the legal fight was over. And then 2020 was a really crazy year. I didn't message him. And finally, on July 10th, 2022, I was preparing to start my new job as an entrepreneur, partnering with Goodwin Recruiting, and it started the next day. I had just quit my old job on Friday, so I'm home just doing my own thing, playing video games, preparing for the first day of my new adventure. I go shower Sunday morning, and then I have a Facebook message from his mom. And it says, "Hi, Antonio, my name is Maria. I am Andres Cañas' mom, your brother's mom. This message has nothing to do with your dad. That fight is over. That stage is over. I Andres is now 20. He just turned 20, and I think it would be really important for Andres to learn about his other family, and to connect with his other family, and I think you'd be a really important part of that. I I can't even describe what went through my mind. 10,000, 10 million things went through my mind. But the reply was, I was surprised. I was shocked. I never thought that we'd connect this way. Um, the reply was obvious. The reply was obvious. So I immediately replied. And remember, in my mind, Andres is still a child, right? Uh, he hasn't been posting too many pictures on Facebook recently. I know that he finished high school, but that's about all I know. I replied to his mom, to Maria, and I say, of course, let's chat. I'm starting a new job next week, so it'll be really hard for me to chat during the week, but we can chat today or we can chat on Saturday. So she replied, let's chat today. A few hours later, Maria and I were chatting on Zoom, so with video, for like an hour and a half. Learned a lot about her, learned a lot about the other side of the story, because there's always two sides to every story. Learned a lot about Andres. And towards the end of the conversation, early in the conversation, I said, if you had reached out 3 weeks ago, I would have jumped on the next direct Delta flight from Atlanta to go meet him. But I'm about to start a new job, and I'm not expecting to go home this year. Uh, I would love to have him visit. And she said he would love that. So I said, okay, how do we make this happen? How do we connect with him? And her and I got a little confused on the planning. And then I just said, okay, how about this? How about I just message him and say hello and talk about scheduling a conversation? She says, that's okay. So I wanted to be respectful, right? I wanted to go through her if she wanted me to go through her, but no, she's like, he's an adult. Just message him directly. Okay. So I message Andres right away, and I say, well, actually, I tell Maria, okay, my girlfriend is traveling and she's currently in Europe, so she's staying up late to wait for me to tell her about this conversation. So let me call her, and then in like half an hour, 45 minutes, I will message Andres. So I do that. I tell Renee what's going on. She goes to bed, and then I message Andres, and I kind of say the same thing. Andres, this is Antonio, your brother. Chatted with your mom earlier today. Would love to chat with you. I'm about to start a new job, so I can't chat during this week, probably. So it could be today or next Saturday, next Sunday. Just let me know what time works. And he immediately replies saying, yes, let's chat today. I'm on my way home. Give me 10 minutes. So I have 10 minutes to prepare for this. I've been waiting 18 years. And it's going to happen. I have 10 minutes to prepare for it. So I just kind of pace around the apartment. Around the apartment. Send him when the time comes, right at 10 minutes. I send him a Zoom link, and I get on the Zoom, and I'm just waiting. And he's still on his way home. Like a good Costa Rican, he's a few minutes late. And then Maria had shared that their internet was out. Not unusual for Costa Rica. So she had gone to her mom's house, to Andres' grandma's house, to have the conversation with me. Andres didn't have notice, so he wasn't able to do that. So then he connects, and he's in his car, or he's in a car. I didn't know at the time that was his car. He's in his car, using his phone, holding it, hand holding his phone as we were on Zoom, and it's real. He becomes a human. He becomes, in my mind, there he is. I no longer have one sister and no brothers. a brother that I know exists, but that I've never met, that I don't know when I will meet. All of a sudden, I have two. I have my only sister, my only brother, who I've never met, who looks just like me and just like my dad. It really is the craziest thing I've ever experienced. Apparently, like my dad and like me, Andres is a softie, and he's crying a little bit. I thought that I'd be crying my eyes out, which I did a little bit with his mom, but I'm holding it together. Uh, and the first thing I think of saying is saying, dude, it's the word in Spanish, my, I always thought that I'd eventually run into you. And I told him the story of what I expected to happen. He hasn't said a word yet. Uh, and so I told him the story of how I had expected that we would meet, just randomly in person in Costa Rica, later, much later, after Dad was dead already. And I think he hadn't even uttered a word. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm a chatterbox, and I was very nervous. I don't think he'd even said a word. We're like 2 minutes into this Zoom call when I find myself saying, first of all, please know that my mom raised me to be unconditional with family. Uh, I think I told him the story of I don't know if I've ever told this story in public, but when my mom got pregnant with my sister, I was very happy being an only child, and I wanted nothing to do with it. And I was 16, and I was 15, and a brat, of course. And my mom, who has always been an amazing mom, comes home one day from her ultrasound and tells me that my sister's going to be a girl, so you're going to have a sister. And I interrupted her and corrected her and said the dumbest thing I have ever said in my life. And I said half sister. And my mom immediately made sure that I knew that, listen, you. There was no cursing involved, but the message was delivered. Listen, this is your sister, period. Uh, and it's going to be your sister for life. And someday I'm not going to be here, and you're going to be a good brother to her. Period. And I understood. And immediately I received the message, and it's been the way that Lucy and I have related since then. So I told that story to Andres. I don't think he had said a word yet. And I said, so the first thing I want you to know is that this is for life. First thing I want you to know is that even though it took us 20 years to connect, I want you to know that I'm here. That you have a brother here in Atlanta, and this is for life. So I'm glad that we finally connected. Yeah, we missed 2 decades, but we still have a lot of time. I'm 39 and a half, gonna be 40 in December. You're only 20. At this point, he actually starts talking. Uh, he is. He starts by saying, "Aquí estoy hecho un charco," which means here I am crying my eyes out, basically Costa Rican slang for I am crying my eyes out, and I'm like, I'm the same way. We got it from Dad. So anyway, we chat for an hour and a half. This particular conversation, I really focus on uh, where we come from, the history of the Cañas family, as best as I know it. Tell him a lot about my dad, a lot about our grandfather, a lot about what I know from the family before my grandfather, and uh, because I don't know how many more conversations we're gonna have, right? I don't know how easy it'll be to connect. Uh, so we chat for an hour and a half or so, and after an hour and a half, I'm like, okay, so I'm starting a new job tomorrow morning. You're starting a new job tomorrow morning, which I what are the chances that we both starting jobs the next morning? So I have to go, but because of my new job, I'm not expecting to go home. I'm not expecting to go home uh, unless Grandma dies. I'm not expecting to go home before before next year. So I think the easiest way, if your mom had called 3 weeks ago, I would have taken the next Delta flight to Costa Rica to meet you, but I can't do that. I think the easiest way is choose a week, choose a weekend, choose a long weekend, whatever. And I have a lot of Delta Sky miles. I'll 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 buy your ticket to come visit me. And he's like, oh no, you don't have to do that. I'm like, listen, I've got 800,000 Delta Sky miles. Renee separately has 1 million Delta Sky miles. It's a direct flight. This is absolutely no problem. Just let me do this. I just want to meet you. So he says, okay, let's figure that out. We finished the conversation there. I found out the next morning that his car ran out of battery after chatting with you. Chatted for so long, and he was using the car battery, and the car wasn't on. So he had to get AAA, so to speak, or whatever the Costa Rican equivalent, to revive his car. Anyway, during that first conversation, I also said, hey, Dad, you and I have a lot of time. Dad is 64, and even though he's a giant partier, and he hasn't taken the best care of himself, he'll probably live another 20, maybe more. I know that he'll never be a father for you, and that's fine. But if I were you, I would want to make friends. Because why not? What do you have to lose now by getting that friendship with your biological father, even if he wasn't perfect when you were growing up? And Andres says, yeah, that makes sense. And then I tell him that we have an aunt, a great aunt called Chiki, and Chiki is kind of the family's historian. It would make a lot of sense to meet her so that you can get the more detailed version of the family history, more than me or Dad understand. And also, hey, Grandma's still alive. We call her Meme. Andres, the last time he had seen my dad was when he was 3, and the last time that he had seen Meme was when he was 8. And so he remembers Meme. Meme's still alive. She's in her 90s. She has Alzheimer's. Most days she's not really there. She's really lost. But she's still there. If I were you, I'd want to go see her. We don't know how long she'll be around. She will likely have no idea who you are, and that's fine. This is for you. You deserve to be able to see your grandma as an adult since she's still around. Okay? So we hang up. I start work the next day. The craziest thing is how immediately he becomes a part of my identity. How immediately, when people ask about me, I say I have a brother and a sister instead of just a sister. The craziest part is how immediately, the next morning, we start orientation for my new job with Goodwin. And instead of talking about my podcast, instead of talking about my insurance designations, instead of talking about my last 5 years in the recruiting business before joining Goodwin, my interesting fact is I just connected with my long-lost brother unexpectedly yesterday. And we're now working on arranging an in-person meeting. So a couple of days later, Andres messages me, I think Tuesday, and says that it is that he'd like to meet Chiki and to meet Meme. And I say, okay, there's 2 ways to do this. We can work through my aunt Damaris, our aunt Damaris, and risk that getting really mad at both of us, or are you ready to meet Dad? And Andres says, I'm ready to meet Dad. So I said, okay, let me reach out. So Tuesday night, I reach out to Dad via FaceTime, via WhatsApp FaceTime, basically. I ask him how things are going, and I'm like, hey, how's it going with Andres? And he's like, the legal mess is over. Andres is over 18 now, he's 20. And I'm like, are you going to meet him? And my dad says, if he reaches out. And I say, okay, here's the deal. This happened. I'm now in contact with Andres, working on meeting him. He's ready to meet you. Um, anyway, I stay up late that night, brokering a peace, so to speak, or using my best diplomacy skills. They arranged to meet on on a Tuesday. They arranged to meet on Saturday. They meet on Saturday to have lunch. Lunch turns into they meet to have coffee, basically to have an early afternoon drink. That turns into having dinner with my dad and his girlfriend. That turns into having a drink at my dad's place. They hung out for like 12 hours. They get along famously. Of course they do. They're clones of each other, just like me. So anyway, so that's awesome. Part of me wanted to just fly to Costa Rica and be there for it, but the job, the new job, and I didn't want to interrupt that. Let them connect on their own. Then my dad came to visit for 2 weeks, and that was planned for months before. And then I finished training and started working. And finally, Andres finishes training, and we scheduled the visit, and he decides to visit for Labor Day. Renee, who's been traveling the world for this year, is coming back to be here for our meeting and to hold the camera, to take video while we have a tearful hello. I go to Insurtech Austin. I come back from Insurtech Austin. That's Thursday. I come back on Friday morning. I land, and I'm a little bit sniffly. And I as soon as I land, I message Renee saying, Renee got back last night from the Caribbean. I'm getting in at 10 a.m. on Friday, 9:30 a.m. on Friday, and Andres is coming in 7:30 p.m. that night. So I messaged Renee. I'm like, hey, could you pull out the orange juice out of the freezer? I think I'm coming down with a cold, a slight cold. And she replies, Renee's super, super careful. She replies, I'm going to pull out a COVID test and I'm going to leave the apartment, go do some groceries. As soon as you send me back a negative COVID test, I'll come back. Get to the apartment, and I'm assuming I'm negative. I've been tested a million times. I've always been negative. I'm vaccinated and everything, of course. I get back, and I take the COVID test. And within 5 minutes, it's positive. So I call Renee, tell her that it's positive. She says, okay, my bags are packed. She was leaving to see her mom on Sunday. She says, my bags are packed. Get into the shower. I'm going to come in, grab my bags, leave. Don't come out of the shower until I message you that I've left. So we do that. Then I call Andres. And I'm like, holy crap. Like my schedule's so busy going forward. Like, I have no idea if he's vaccinated, if he's had it. I made a sign for the airport. I have plans for that. We have baseball tickets. I bought him 20 gifts for the 20 birthdays that I missed. I'll make a separate video about those because those are kind of cool. And I approached it very much like a chat with Tony, basically, the whole weekend. Like a chat with Tony.com conversation, just a long one. And a more personal one, of course. So I call Andres. I wake him up. He was up super late with my dad the night before. With our dad the night before, and I call him. I say, "Hey, Andres, are you vaccinated?" He says, "Yes." I'm like, "Hey, I just tested positive. I'm mostly asymptomatic, just kind of a runny nose. Your call. What do we do? Do you want to delay a couple weeks?" And he immediately says, "No, I'm on my way. We're good. I'm vaccinated. We're good." So Renee leaves. I rest. I lay down. I message Kylie. Let her know that I'm gonna play hooky for the rest of the day. That I need to rest. I rest, and then I go pick Andres up, fully masked, K95. Pick him up. Well, I wait and I wait and I wait and I wait, and I'm taking video. I'm getting video. I'm getting pictures. I'm getting. I want this video of us. Of the sign and us hugging and maybe like crying, and I imagine the rest of the airport people clapping, and of course life never works out. So instead, the video, like a woman is blocking the camera. You can see us kind of in the corner, and then we have just an amazing long weekend, a really amazing long weekend. Mostly stay in the apartment. When we leave, we're wearing masks, to protect everybody else since I'm positive. Luckily, COVID was a non-event for the most part. We have just an amazing week and really get to know each other, really talk about what he wants to do. He's 20, a little bit lost. So it really turns into a long like chat with Tony conversation, and then Tuesday night, Monday night, he's supposed to fly out Tuesday morning. Monday night, we stay up super late, trying to maximize the time. I end up going to bed and getting 3 hours of sleep, and then he ends up not sleeping at all. And uh, that was Monday night. Tuesday morning, I drive him to the airport at 5 a.m. because he has an 8 a.m. flight and doesn't have pre-check, and the Atlanta airport can get stupidly crazy without pre-check. So I drop him off at the airport at 5:30 a.m. and tell him, hey, we have to do it again. Choose a couple weeks and come back, and have a less hurried visit. And he during the weekend, I even managed to score myself a PS5, which I've been looking for 18 months. So I scored myself a PS5. So I let him have my PS4. That was the last of the 20 gifts, basically. So it all worked out amazingly, just wonderful. So I drop him off on Tuesday morning, and at 5:30 a.m. he makes it to security pretty quickly. He's at his gate, and get home. I nap for an hour and a half. Then I shower. I start working. I start catching up. I've ignored emails. I've ignored LinkedIn messages. I've ignored all my messaging services. I've been 100% focused on connecting with and getting to know Andres, eating my own dog food, following the advice that family comes first. By the way, for the weekend, I got us matching T-shirts, brother family themed matching T-shirts. He was a good sport, and he wore them every day, and we got great pictures every day. And so I drop. So I'm starting to work, starting to catch up, and then my phone rings and it's Andres, and I'm like, shouldn't you be on a plane? And he says, I made it through security quickly. I was the first one at the gate. Then I fell asleep, and I slept through my flight. I'm already rebooked for tomorrow morning. What do I do? And I'm like, okay, grab the Uber, come home. So we got a bonus night. I worked while he napped, and then we hung out. And then I got a little bit more sleep. I got like 5 hours of sleep. He got like 3. And then finally I dropped him off at the airport Wednesday morning, and he went home. And it was just amazing. It was really just an amazing experience. As we start to build this relationship and make up for the lost time as much as we can. And now we're planning a 2-week visit sometime in the next couple of months. A much more chill visit. And yeah, that's the story. So if you made it all the way to the end, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for letting me tell this very personal story. Family is family. Family comes first. Some family we grow up with. There are friends who become family. Several friends of mine come to mind. And there's also family. There also might be. There also, for some of us, there is family who is blood related, who we did not get to meet till later. But family is family. Blood is thicker than water. Don't let the circumstances get in the way of being there for your family. As much as I talk about careers, ultimately the reason careers are so awesome is because we, especially in insurance, we get to make a difference in other people's lives. But the reason careers are so awesome is because they support our families. They support what we want to do with our friends and our families. They are the most important thing. If you end up in a job that doesn't allow you the right work-life balance, let's find you a new one. Like I said, I'm still processing. It took me a lot of effort to minimize my crying on this video. I'll be talking more about this as we get to know each other more and more. Who knows? Maybe he'll end up studying RMI and working with the insurance, joining the family business, so to speak. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you.